My name is Carolina, and I'm here representing Arkbound Foundation, a charity working to widen access to literature and improve diversity within publishing. Today we have with us Carol Manetta, who has written a chapter for an upcoming Arkbound book coming up this 25th of October, named Climate Adaptation. Carol Manetta is the founder and the executive director for Reap Goodness. She has plentiful experience with teaching and instructional design in corporate, nonprofit, and government environments. She also worked with indigenous communities, developing programs and instruction related to agriculture. And more recently, with her work with Reap Goodness, Carol has been focusing on natural systems change and developing instruction programs to rescue degraded ecosystems, create food abundance, clean water, and create worker cooperatives. Welcome, Carol. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Carolina. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you and the public.
Okay, so I would like to start this interview by asking about your personal journey that led to your current work with Reap Goodness and to ultimately writing this chapter.
Well, this personal journey is one filled with twists and turns. It's not your average lifetime. Instead, the richness of varied experiences has led me first to the world of professional dance and teaching dance in elementary and secondary schools, then to motherhood, then back to earn a master's degree in instructional design. For people who don't know what instructional design is, it's the design, development, and testing of training and training curricula. And from there, the journey took me to the industrial and corporate world, and then on to volunteer, then work in the prisons in curriculum design for those who were returning to civilization. So from there, the Arizona Department of Corrections, that's the state that I live in and work in, Arizona, this is here in the US, they requested that I work in some rural areas or with the indigenous peoples, since they were the least served, and that appealed to me. Since there were indigenous elders whom I considered friends, I chose that route. I consulted with the Intertribal Council of Arizona, and those good people requested agriculture as a way of healing and benefiting all people in their tribes. So I jumped into research, and I found water to be scarce here. So I suggested hydroponics, which takes less water than land agriculture, and also the manufacture of something new, that's telescoping greenhouses that could, collapsed, fit into a shipping container with all the supplies inside in order to help people with food security year-round anywhere in the world. That did not reach fruition. There were a number of factors that that meant it would not reach fruition. However, the next tribal effort brought hydroponics to a different tribe, along with a conventional greenhouse, which we supplied them, to supplement their own tribal training on agricultural production. And that was done in collaboration with Arizona State University's engineering projects in community service, or EPICS for short, their program, from whom our team, that's over a 4-year period, received 4 awards from the university. And so while Reap Goodness was working with the indigenous farming business incubator on the Navajo Nation, we also promised them training on worker-owned cooperatives, and we supplied that.
Okay, so that taps right into my next question. And it's something that strikes one when reading your chapter, and I was lucky to, is that there's a big emphasis on worker cooperatives. So maybe could you explain a little bit why cooperatives are so important in your view and so positive?
Okay, well, for a time, I joined forces with the Arizona Cooperative Initiative to find out more. And subsequently, I worked with the Arizona State Legislature to enact a law making worker-owned cooperatives a profit-making business form in this state. And that was signed into law in 2016. We then created 2 training ebooks for people to understand how to create and function in worker-owned cooperatives. Why did we do that? Because basically they're more sound, they're democratic in decision-making, and more resilient in economic downturns. That's worldwide. And they contribute to the surrounding community as a basic premise. It's part of their nature to support the community that they function within. So worldwide, this is very interesting. The majority of worker-owned cooperatives, that's about 70%, are started and owned by women. It's natural for women to group together since they have done so throughout history related to childbearing. And so this ability to convene and cooperate is of their nature. That's what makes them so successful in the long run. That's not to say that cooperatives initiated by men are not successful, because they are to a great extent. And where needed, men and women have joined together to forge cooperatives. Because this is seen as equals, it encourages the forward motion of gender equality worldwide. In decision-making in cooperatives, the beauty of democratic and lateral decision-making rather than top-down, it speeds up the progress of the equality of the genders. With one worker, one vote, there's equality messaging throughout the community that observes the cooperative in their midst. So there's that ripple effect.
Wonderful. And in the chapter, you make analogies between worker cooperatives and nature. So it seems to be something that is really present in your work, being based in nature. How much do you think nature should inform our work in general?
Nature, from our viewpoint, is the ultimate teacher. As we observe nature, we see that all living beings live in harmony with each other so as to balance the ecosystems within which they live. When we use the term harmony, we mean the balancing act of utilization of resources. This precludes the predator-prey balance that allows all animals to thrive by having enough to eat and drink and reproduce in balance with the ecosystems that will support them. That's what we mean by harmony with nature and within nature. In the case of worker cooperatives, there's also a balance in respect to utilization of resources and compensation so that every one of the members can thrive with enough to eat, a place to live, the ability to have a family and support it, and yet share with the community around them so that they have balance too. So in nature, we know that plants, including trees, communicate with each other and balance out all the resources underneath the soil so that there's enough nutrition for all the plants in a forest, let's say, that can have enough to thrive and allow the forest to be balanced with an equal share of its resources from the earth. Scientists have observed this for some time now. So the mutual communication among cooperative members and other cooperatives in the community are a good replication of what's known about nature. Nature is vibrantly resilient, as we have observed in the city of Chernobyl, for instance. After their nuclear disaster and the relocation of the human population, the forest and its many creatures have successfully replenished the area around and among the existing buildings. This kind of resilience is the nature of cooperatives if the cooperative members are adequately trained on how to smooth over their rough spots. Nature is a beautiful example.
Gorgeous. So you are developing a replicable model with Reap Goodness, which is based on trios of worker cooperatives. Maybe could you explain a bit about this model?
Yes. After developing training ebooks on worker cooperatives, I turned my attention to the state of the planet and its needs. There are many articles and videos that show the dire nature of what's going on the planet. It occurred that the nature of cooperatives would allow people arm in arm, so to speak, to tackle all the needed fixes that are dire at this time for the planet to thrive. The tasks that are needed to be done must be done as quickly as possible. We know that. They involve a lot of hard work physically. It would be too much for single cooperatives to do this in time to avoid planetary disasters. With more than one cooperative to split up the many tasks that are needed right now, the rejuvenation of Earth will take place in the short time that we've been allotted to fix what's needed, according to scientists, that is. And so the idea of bringing together a trio of cooperatives came about. Depending on what's needed, wherever they are locally on the planet, perhaps one cooperative is needed, or two cooperatives, or all three would be available to tackle the tasks. This would need to be determined on site by the community and by the cooperatives themselves. The trios of cooperatives would have the ongoing agreement to split up as needed or work together as a tour de force to manage everything that needs to be done on that site, on that particular site, locally. It may be that there can be a slight overlap of the tasks done, so that if one cooperative is needed and one task from another cooperative is all that's needed in addition, by prior agreement, that's how things would proceed. As always within cooperatives, there's mutual agreement from the discussions at hand as to how to proceed. There is no such thing as competition among cooperatives. They agree to cooperate with each other and with other cooperatives and with the community within which they function.
I'm curious to know a little bit more about exactly what a trio of worker co-ops working together looks like. So does each co-op always have the same focus? How does it work in practice?
Well, this is easy. They know their roles. Okay, each one knows their particular role. And because we have one cooperative that will capture rain from roofs and also from swales, catchment ditches, and other means. And the second one will be doing the planning and planting and harvesting of food forests. The third will be healing the polluted waters, starting with ditches, roadside ditches, and creating ponds in areas for wild animals away from farming so that they have their privacy. But each one of them knows their role. They'll know that role clear as a bell. As they intend to do that work together, they'll go over scenarios way ahead of time in which they'll have discussions as to how to broach those difficult times and the good times together. And causes for celebration are the first things that they will concentrate on. I have to make that very, very clear. It will not simply be working in solving difficulties. Oh no, instead, they'll focus on how they'll reach their reward status as workers together, first and foremost. They'll go over each of the potential scenarios and know when they have reached their successes and then how they choose to celebrate. And reaching for those positive outcomes tremendously offsets any difficulties that they may have. They'll also have gone over some scenarios of potential difficulties and how to reach agreements ahead of time so that when they hit a snag, they'll switch gears and go into repair mode with each other as they've rehearsed it. Clear record keeping as to agreements makes for that clarity when the situations call for them and they have these agreements then to refer to. This is one of the ways that the tribal peoples have successfully lived with each other over millennia. We're simply imitating them, that's all. And this is one of the reasons why indigenous peoples take a great deal of time to come up with the next step in their processes. We have a lot to learn from them.
Okay, so at this moment, you are going through a trial run, and for this, you are collaborating with several universities. We would like to know, how are you bridging the academic world and this type of more hands-on work with cooperatives?
Well, at this time, we are being creative with the COVID pandemic situation. We're definitely collaborating with Arizona State University, which has the reputation of being the most innovative university in America, several years running now. We had envisioned university students from a number of universities living together for research for 1 year to take on the role of each of the cooperatives in the trio. With the virus variants emerging, this idea has changed to one of community engagement in the area of the trial site with vaccinated students from the area who may live at home and then enter into agreements and work during the day on site, and then living within the community at home with their families at night rather than in close quarters on site. This is strictly for their safety. We'll be engaging another nearby university for their existing knowledge of native food plants. That's the University of Arizona. The chefs of that university, this is very interesting, they work hand in glove with a nutritionist for meals on campus. They do not serve food to students until they know the exact nutritional content. And so that makes them experts in native perennial foods. And I have been there and been there when they have produced these meals at a conference. Fantastic. And they also know about their nutrition and their taste. That's what chefs do. They'll also serve as advisors on which plants the university will serve as advisors on the plants that can be grown, and the professors will be advisors on water management for the local students that we're going to work with to engage in. We'll be ordering plant starters of native food trees. Some of them are from the native peoples that are being revived. And that's from Utah State University, which is in a neighboring state to ours, neighboring region. We'll also be sharing some of the plants on the trial site that must be removed. These are called mesquite trees, and they've been the cattle that have roamed through there, excuse me, the cattle that have roamed through there have made them very, very short. They're only about half a meter high. These are trees. There are no shade trees anywhere. So we have to remove some of them to create our food forest. And we're going to share those with a nearby native tribal community, the Tohono O'odham people. Our strategy is to work with the community first. That is the local governments, school principals, and leaders of houses of worship. They'll observe and advise and help us to record the decisions from a community perspective on mutual benefit with the trio of cooperatives. We have already the positive attention of the closest city's mayor and the city planner. That gives us a head start on community engagement and a more realistic scenario for the trio of cooperatives. All of this turned out better as a plan.
So the general topic of the book, as I've mentioned, is climate adaptation. How do you consider that this work that you are doing contributes to climate adaptation?
Well, the betterment of humanity and the planetary sources that support them are in critical need of sweeping solutions. We know that. As we adapt to the current situation on Earth, we set up a solution that's achievable by all around the globe, and that's its promise. Continuation requires adapting to food sources and water sources, not currently in widespread usage. Adaptation means a shifting from current behaviors to new ones. After careful consideration of possibilities, the idea of training people in their own language for speedy adaptation to achievable goals made a lot of sense. Now, testing this quickly so as to go forward with the information in a hurry is imperative for the widespread adaptation to work. Blanketing the Earth with food forests and clean water sourcing will have immediate effect and sprout cooler lands, food for all, and the ability to use more water sources to support all life. The climate will change with these adaptations in a short period of time, and that's all we have is a short period of years to do this. So sharing the how-tos within each community will have a multiplier effect beyond a mere ripple effect. Okay, the practices will mushroom with the idea of free foods in the long term and clean water sources for animals and people as a tried and true system, not just a hobby or a means of extra income for a few people. Oh no, this set of adaptations away from the consumerism that has heated this planet will bring untold benefits in a huge hurry. That's the promise of the forthcoming training.
Okay, so speaking about promise and hopes for the future, I would like to ask you a little bit about your hopes for the near future in terms of what the book will achieve, and also if you have hopes for the COP conference this November.
Well, this is a set of two related questions, and I'll take them one at a time. First, the book will generate lasting impressions of ideas that can be mulled over for a time and passed along to others. That's the beauty of books. Simple exchanges of noteworthy ideas can spark other ideas and replicate the best ones in any reader's thinking. This collection of writers have a passion about their own ideas, and this passion is passed along to inspire others quickly and over time too. This is priceless. The book's timing for the COP26 climate summit is perfect. It'll support and influence decisions made together at the conference and reinforce the notions brought up there by quality speakers. Discussions will be enriched by these new ideas, and the ongoing ripple effect of many concepts will spark yet more solutions and unique adaptations to climate change. I have confidence in the reinforcement of the book and the summit being produced in good timing for one another's urgent climate messages to inspire a waiting planet and its occupants.
So one last question. If people were to take just one message from your chapter, what would you like that message to be?
The clear message for all to take with them is that with many hands, the work will be light to make this world adaptable to its greatest climate failings. No more will we simply talk about the need to do something. We have a blueprint for each other and can achieve so much good in a hurry to take the best of our human social behaviors and make the world a feasible, holy, and healthy place for all to live.
Thank you so much, Carol, for sharing all of this with us, for talking about your work and your special message that you want to put forward with this chapter. So for those of you watching at home, we hope that this interview piqued your interest to read Carol's chapter. And if you head over to the description, you can find a link to check out the book, and even you can even pre-order if you are interested. And you can also find links to Reap Goodness to dive deeper into Carol's work if you are interested. Thank you again so much, Carol.
Thank you, Carolina. It's been a pleasure.